Okay, so we were doing the forebrain, and we have completed various parts of the forebrain. We have done hypothalamus, thalamus, limbic system, and now we're going to cover up the very important part of forebrain, which is known as the cerebrum, right? The other name of cerebrum is what? Cerebral cortex. What this part does, this part regulates all higher levels of cognitive functions such as attention, perception, learning, memory, language, behavior, reasoning, and problem solving. So all the important functions, mainly cognitive functions, are regulated by which part? The cerebrum. And please underline the other name, the cerebral cortex. If question asks and they ask about cerebral cortex, then do not confuse. You have to write all the things explained about the cerebrum, right? Now there is a brief description about its structure, so do not learn it. I just read it out for you. The cerebrum makes 2/3 of the total mass of the human brain. Its thickness varies from 1.5 mm to 4 mm, which covers the entire surface of the brain and contains neurons, neural nets, and bundles of axons. All these make it possible for us to perform organized actions and create images, symbols, associations, and memories, right? So this is just a brief introduction that what is the structure, how does it look like? Do not learn it, just read it. Now next come the cerebrum is divided into two symmetrical halves, right? Now two symmetrical halves called the cerebral hemispheres. Although the two hemispheres appear identical, means these two hemispheres look alike, there is no difference. But functionally, if we talk, one hemisphere usually dominates the other. Let us just understand it with an example. For example, left hemisphere usually controls which part? The language, right? The left hemisphere, L for left and L for language. So just relate the things like this. And the left hemisphere usually controls the language behavior. The right hemisphere is usually specialized to deal with images, spatial relationships, and pattern recognition. See, what is it all about? Mainly the right hemisphere, you can say it is responsible for the creativity of a person. If left hemisphere is very much developed in a person, the person will be very good in language proficiency. The person will be able to understand, write, and speak quite good number of languages. You must have seen many people are very proficient in learning many kinds of languages. Tourist guides are there, translators are there, or the common people also, which are doing some other job, but still they are very much proficient and they are very much efficient in speaking more than 2 to 3 languages. You must have seen all these Bollywood singers. They are capable of singing, in 30 languages. I think I have read an interview about Asha Bhosle or Lata Mangeshkar. So what was it written? They can sing in around 30 or more than 30 languages. So what is this? That they are very much proficient in language behavior. The right hemisphere, it is mainly specialized with images, spatial relationships, and pattern recognition. What does this mean? You must have seen that there are artists, right? There are architects, and there are various kind of persons who are really engaged in all these kinds of activities. Pattern recognition or spatial relationships. If we take example, you must have seen the pilots. Yes, the pilots are very much having a good sense of spatial relationships. They know various dimensions, various spaces, various angles. The mathematician, they are also very good in spatial relationship. So various kind of, you can give the example of, or you can take the career options also. The aviation field is mainly concerned with what? Spatial relationships and pattern recognition. Fine. So right hemisphere is usually specialized to deal with these kind of things. Now these two hemispheres are connected by a wide bundle of myelinated fibers called corpus callosum. Now these two hemispheres are connected by what? A myelinated fiber which is known as corpus callosum that carries messages back and forth between the hemisphere. What does it do? The duty of corpus callosum is to carry messages back and forth between these two hemispheres, between right and left hemisphere, right? Now let's come upon another division. Cerebral cortex has also been divided into 4 lobes. Now this is quite important. 4 lobes are there in cerebral cortex. What are they? Frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, and occipital lobe, right? So let us take one by one. The frontal lobe is mainly concerned with cognitive functions. Again, the same example you're going to give: attention, thinking, memory, reasoning, learning, right? The parietal lobe is mainly concerned with cutaneous sensation. What is cutaneous sensations? Cutaneous sensations are related to your skin, right? If something is crawling on your skin, if you are feeling any kind of touch on your skin, the parietal lobe is responsible for that. So parietal lobe is mainly concerned with cutaneous sensations and also their coordination with visual and auditory sensation. Somewhere this lobe is also playing an important role, or it is coordinating the visual and auditory sensation, what we perceive and what we hear. So there must be a coordination. So who is controlling? Which part is controlling? The parietal lobe. The third one is what? Temporal lobe. So temporal lobe, you can relate the word. You must have hear this word. It is related to what? Auditory functions. Tempo, right? Temporal lobe. It is related. It is associated with the auditory information. Memory for symbolic sounds and words resides here. Understanding of speech and written language depends on this lobe. So if you are able to listen properly, if you are able to write it properly, and if you are able to remember the symbolic sounds and words, your temporal lobe is working quite good. The last lobe is what? Occipital lobe. It is mainly concerned with what? We have studied about this lobe where in the first chapter. What was the topic? Understanding the mind and behavior. And I have given the example. Yes. So occipital lobe is mainly concerned with what? With visual information, with your perception. It is believed that interpretation of visual impulses, memory for visual stimuli, and color visual orientation is performed by this lobe, right? So all these things are done by occipital lobe, whether it is related to color identification, whether it is related to interpreting various kind of visual impulses in the environment, or for memorizing various kind of visual stimuli. So all these functions are performed by which lobe? The occipital lobe. Right, so there are altogether 4 lobes of cerebral cortex: frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital. Right, so this is all about the cerebrum. The other name of cerebrum is what? Cerebral cortex. Fine. Then it is divided into 2 symmetrical halves, and structure-wise, these hemispheres or these halves look very much similar. But function-wise, what they are saying that one hemisphere usually dominates the other. This means that in a person, sometimes what happens, the left hemisphere is much more dominating than the right hemisphere. That means the person is very much in, understanding the language, the theory part. Uh, you can say, you can also associate with the academics. The person is very good in academics. And right hemisphere is mainly concerned with various kind of other creative things or more technological things like spatial relationships, pattern recognition, and with the variety of images. Fine. So in one person, right hemisphere is dominating, in another, maybe the left hemisphere is dominating. So understand the functions of both the hemisphere. Now, what is important next? That these two halves or these two hemispheres are connected by a white bundle of myelinated fibers, right? Which is known as corpus callosum. And what is the function of this part? It carries messages back and forth between the hemisphere. Fine. Next is what we discussed about the 4 lobes of cerebral cortex. Give the names and give their functions: the frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital. Fine. Now we are just summarizing the structure of brain. So what it is given, physiologists and psychologists have tried to identify specific functions associated with specific brain structures. As a psychologist, as a physiologist, what these people have done, they have tried to identify that there is a connection between a specific structure and its function, right? They have found that no activity of the brain is performed only by a single part of the cortex. So when they have done research on it, they came up with this conclusion that no activity or no behavior of the brain is performed only by a single part of the cortex. That means all the part of the cortex are somewhere involved in any kind of activity to take place. Normally other parts are involved, but it is also correct that there is some localization of functions. See, the contradictory things are there. At one side, they are saying that all the parts are somewhere involved in any activity to be happen. And at the other point, what they are saying, that there is some localization of functions. What does it mean? Localization of functions. That is, for a particular function, a particular part of the cortex plays a more important role than the other parts, right? See, the meaning is localization of function का मतलब क्या है कि there are specific structures or lobes given. So for a particular activity, as we have discussed about, let's say temporal lobe, I told you that it is related to the auditory information or auditory processing. So mainly whenever it is related to anything which is related to our ears, this temporal lobe will play a greater role, or the activity played by this lobe will be greater as compared to other lobes. But otherwise, all the lobes are somewhere related to each other in performing any kind of activity or behavior. Now, a very good example of this thing, just now what I said, it's given, try to understand. If you are, suppose, just imagine that you are driving a car, right? You see the road and other vehicles by the function of your occipital lobe, right? You are on the road, you are driving a car, so you are looking at the traffic, you are noticing the traffic lights, the traffic policemen, the other cars, the other vehicles. So this is done by which lobe? Occipital lobe. Second thing, you can hear the horns by the function of your temporal lobe, right? You are able to listen to various kinds of sound, whether it is related to the horn, whether it is related to any vehicle, whether it is related to any person. So which part is playing an important role? The temporal lobe. Now you are also performing various kind of motor activities while driving a car. So it is all controlled by parietal lobe, right? Parietal lobe is mainly considered with your touch or cutaneous sensations, and it is controlling various kind of motor activities for changing the gear, for applying the brake, for moving the steering, right? So all these motor movements and activities are controlled by which lobe? The parietal lobe. And last, if you are making any decisions, so you are able to perform this activity with the help of which lobe? The frontal lobe, as it is concerned with all the cognitive functions. Now, what will be the decision while driving a car? Lot of things are there, whether to apply the brake, whether to maintain a distance with the car which is going ahead of your car, right? Whether to stop, whether to cross, whether to overtake. Many kind of things are there. You have to be very active, alert, and cautious, right? So all these decisions are taken by which lobe? Frontal lobe. So on a whole, you can see that brain is acting in a very well coordinated manner, right? All kinds of lobes are related to each other, but yes, localization of functions means that for some activities, a particular lobe is much more involved as compared to other lobes, right? So this is all about the structure of the brain. Now let us just quickly finish the spinal cord, as it is not given in very much detail. What is a spinal cord? Just understand the structure. The spinal cord is a long rope-like collection of nerve fibers. It looks like a rope, and it looks like a collection of nerve fibers which run along the full length inside the spine. Its one end is connected with the medulla of the brain. You remember the medulla oblongata, first part of the hindbrain we just discussed, and another is free at the tail end. What it is saying, that spinal cord is connected with the medulla oblongata of the brain at one side, and on the other side, which is the tail end, it is free. It is not connected to anything. Its structure all along its length is similar. The butterfly-shaped mass of gray matter present in the center of the spinal cord contains association neurons and other cells. Just underline this. A one mark question could be asked that what you mean by association neurons, or what is the color of the butterfly shaped mass. So just underline these 2-3 lines, that there is a butterfly shaped mass of gray matter present in the center of the spinal. And what it contains association neurons and other cells. Fine. Now much you don't have to study surrounding the gray matter is the white matter. You don't have to do this thing, just leave it. Now let us concentrate upon the functions. Now what are the two main functions of the spinal cord? The first function is what? It carries sensory impulses coming from the lower parts of the body to the brain, right? And motor impulses originating from the brain to all over the body. So what does it mean? That spinal cord is playing a two-way part, a two-way responsibility, that it is carrying information from the brain to the other parts of the brain, and the other way around, it is carrying the information from various organs, from various other parts of the body to the brain, right? Sensory and motor nerves, as we discussed already. Now, what is the second function of spinal cord? It performs some simple reflexes that do not involve the brain. You all have heard about the word reflex action, various kinds of reflexes. I will going to discuss about it, but for now, it performs various kinds of simple reflexes in which there is no involvement of brain. Only spinal cord is able to control or regulate the simple reflexes, right? What are simple reflexes? It mainly involves a sensory nerve, a motor nerve, and the association neurons of the gray matter of the spinal cord. That's why I asked you to underline this, that simple reflexes are possible because of three kind of things. What are they? First is sensory nerve, second motor nerve, and third one is what? The association neurons, which we discussed, and they are of butterfly shaped mass of gray matter, right? And where it is present? It is present in the center of the spinal cord, right? So this was all about the spinal cord. Now let us briefly and quickly discuss what is the meaning of a reflex action. First of all, make it clear that reflex action is an involuntary action that occurs very quickly after its specific kind of stimulation. What does it mean when we say involuntary action? A reflex action is an involuntary action means that it is not in our control. It happens automatically, right? And very quickly after its specific kind of stimulation. There is a certain kind of stimulation. Suppose you sneezes, so something has present in the air, you just smell it, and because of it you all of a sudden sneezed, right? All of a sudden you blink your eye whenever something comes in front of our eyes, so we blink our eyes just to protect our eyes. This is also involuntary, right? The reflex action takes place automatically without conscious decision of the brain. See, brain is not involved. Why? Because there is no need of any kind of decision to be taken, because these are very involuntary and automatic and obvious kind of activities. So brain is not involved in it. Reflex actions are inherited in our nervous system through evolutionary processes, right? From the generations, these things are carried and these are inherited through evolutionary processes. Now they have given certain example. You can also give them while explaining the eye blinking reflex. Just now I explained. What are others? Knee jerking. There is a jerk in the knee. Sometimes you must have noticed or feel. Knee jerking is also a kind of reflex action. Pupil constriction. Pulling away from very hot or cold objects. This all have experienced. Whenever you touch something, if it is very cold, if it is very hot, you just pull away your hand automatically and very quickly. Breathing and stretching. So all these are certain examples of reflex action. And what is the important thing? That it is an involuntary action. It does not require any conscious decision. That is why there is no involvement of brain. Most reflex actions are carried out by the spinal cord and do not involve the brain. Fine, the same thing. So here we also end with reflex action. Now let us start with another important topic, the endocrine system. What is the meaning of endocrine system? Endocrine glands play a very crucial role in our development and behavior. See, whenever we talk about the physiological aspect, these glands are playing very important role, and somewhere they are also affecting your behavior. That means they are also affecting us psychologically, right? So endocrine glands play a very important and crucial role in our development as well as behavior. They secrete specific chemical substances called hormones. All have heard this word, hormones. Which part secretes? The endocrine system. We'll study about various glands under this system. So all these endocrine glands secrete specific chemical substances, which is known as hormones, which control some of our behaviors, right? These glands are also called ductless glands. Now, why these glands are called ductless? Because they do not have any duct to send their secretions to specific places. Hormones are circulated by the bloodstream. See, some endocrine glands are known as ductless glands. Why? Because they do not have any duct which is connecting them to any part of the body. So what they are doing, they are just secreting themselves into the blood. So hormones are circulated by the bloodstream. The endocrine glands form the endocrine system of the body. This system works in conjunction with different parts of the nervous system. Obviously, that they are working in a collaboration with different parts of the nervous system. We talked about the nervous system, the peripheral, the central nervous system, right? So the whole system is now known as what? Neuroendocrine system. Neuroendocrine system, because endocrine glands are there, and neuro when we talk about nervous system. So two things are there, nervous system and endocrine glands. That is why it is known as what? Neuroendocrine system. Fine. So what things you have to remember, that what are the chemical substances secreted by these glands? These are hormones. Why these glands are known as ductless glands? Answer them that they do not have a duct to connect with something, so they just secrete the hormones in the bloodstream. Fine. And this is known as neuroendocrine system because it works in conjunction with various or different parts of the nervous system. Now let us start, just we quickly complete the gland. The first gland is pituitary gland. Very simple, all have studied this. Yes, pituitary gland. This gland is situated within the cranium, just below the hypothalamus. Don't remember the location and structure. Just for your information, I am reading. Where it is situated? It is situated within the cranium, just below the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus कहाँ पढ़ा था हमने? Forebrain के अंदर, right? We have studied about hypothalamus as the first structure of forebrain. So this gland is situated just below that hypothalamus. And the pituitary gland is divided into anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. What does it mean? That it is divided into two parts. The one part is known as anterior, the another part is known as posterior. Now, what is the function of anterior pituitary? It is directly connected with hypothalamus, which regulates its hormonal secretions. The pituitary gland secretes the growth hormone and many other hormones. So can you just take out the meaning that what it is responsible for? Pituitary gland is responsible for your growth. Growth in the term of various kind of developmental processes which are taking, be it related to your weight, be it related to your height, right? Be it related to various kind of changes according to your age. So pituitary gland secretes the growth hormone and many other hormones, which direct and regulate the secretions of many other endocrine glands found in our body. So it is somewhere also controlling the secretions of other endocrine glands. Various kind of glands are there. They all are secreting some kind of hormones. So this pituitary gland somewhere controls or regulates those secretions also. That is why pituitary gland is also known as master gland. Another important thing to underline, which gland is known as the master gland? The pituitary gland. How many parts are there? The anterior and posterior. They have talked about that pituitary gland is very important. It secretes the growth hormone and it also directs and regulates the secretions of many other endocrine glands. Now, some hormones are secreted at a steady rate throughout life, while others are secreted at an appropriate time in life. What does it mean? That hormonal secretions are there, but some hormonal secretions are limited to certain age, and some are continuing, throughout your lifespan. For example, the growth hormone is released steadily only through childhood. All people know that in girls and boys, there is an age limit after which certain physical changes will occur, right? So pituitary gland is responsible for that. With some spurt during adolescence, some gonadotropic hormones and are secreted at the age of puberty. So at the age of puberty, there are certain hormonal secretions, and after that age has passed, those secretions will automatically stop, right? As a result, primary and secondary sexual changes take place. So these kind of changes also occurred because of which gland? The pituitary gland, which is also known as the master gland, right? So this is all of, ma'am, we can stop with the recording. So this is all about the endocrine glands for